Ron, you mentioned that Christianity is an unperceived crisis. What do you mean by that?
Well, let me answer that by telling you a story again.
Okay.
One Sunday morning, I woke up very early in the morning, went out into my living room, sat down in my favorite reading chair, and I was there to kind of go through some scripture and just pray a little bit before I went to church. And I had the TV on in the background very quietly and almost as a means of just having a little fellowship in the room. And almost in this serendipitous moment, this preacher starts echoing words that caught my attention. He started saying things like this. He said, traditionalists, which are retiree age people, has 65% Bible-based believers.
Wow.
Boomers, which would be 1946 to 1964, my age group, he said that group of people, he said they had 35% Bible-based believers. Xers, the next group of generation.
My group.
There you go. 17%. And then
Wow,
the
in
current,
half.
current youth generation, now the mosaics, 4%.
Wow, much more than half.
Yeah, and so in almost searing rhetoric, he gets up and he says, we are now in position to lose a generation. And I'd heard those stats before, but something went off on the inside of me, and I just stood up and I flicked off the TV, and I was standing there in anger. And I suddenly heard the Spirit of God say to me, I'm not going to lose a generation. I'm going to raise a generation up. And I began to realize God was dealing with me in ways to touch the current youth culture, to touch current culture. And so I began to realize there were certain elements in youth culture that were turned off to Christianity. And one of them was that it was all about rules and regulations. You keep these rules, you're good. If you don't keep these rules, you're bad. But what was happening was a whole group of people in that youth culture were saying, I don't feel qualified to receive from God or to be used by God. So the main issue becomes, no one's doubting God's ability.
Right.
They're doubting his willingness because it's a law-based performance gospel. But when you move into grace, you're able to relate to God in an intimacy, and it changes everything about what Christianity is.
Wow, that would change the way people parent too, I'm sure.
Absolutely, absolutely.